Hey guys, this is Ashley James. I'm actually going to be speaking with a dear friend of mine, Cris Kimbrough. She is a industry principal, a OG badass in the tech and multifamily space. Has worked for a bunch of different companies, which we'll get into. She also has a PhD, archaeologist. She'll talk about how that applies to everything. It's incredible. And she's really fucking funny. I've known her for a few years now, and I'm so thankful for her friendship. Her friendship has been one of the best things I've ever gotten out of this industry. She's a machine. And if you haven't had an opportunity to work with her yet, you really need to figure out how to, because she's really fucking smart and she knows a lot of people. She connects the dots really well and she doesn't stop. So anyways, we'll get started. Where are you, number one? Let's tell people where you are and you're not like this homeless person living in a hotel when you kind of are.
Well, I kind of am. No, I am in Ocean City, Maryland, where we used to come to the beach when I was younger and brought my kids here when they were little and just
Yeah.
needed a decompress.
I think every conference should be by an ocean for multiple reasons.
Well, I mean, you're getting that with NAA this year.
You know what? I've never been to New Orleans before, which is crazy because I grew up in Dallas. I know. And I've never been. And there's a couple other people I know that haven't been. Or if they have, it's been for a long weekend, like bachelorette or bachelor party. So they don't really remember it.
First of all, I've been to New Orleans several times, but not in quite a while. There's Vegas, and there's
Yeah.
that kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then there's the New Orleans kind of crazy, where the first time I went, I swore I wasn't drinking because I had to give a paper the next morning at a conference at 9 a.m. And yet it was 2 a.m. And I was on the street holding a hurricane in one hand and a foot-long hot dog in the other, and I was getting my shoes shined.
Amazing. I think that we're going to go to NAA, and I think that we should have a meetup and specifically do that.
Are we?
No, we're doing it. So we'll do one hand hurricane, other hand footlong hot dog, and a shoe shine.
Footlong hot dog.
So we will set that up. Anybody who wants to be a part of the shoe shine hurricane footlong hot dog group.
I know.
It's like the Super Bowl, right?
I'd say it's probably the most down to earth and least pretentious of all the conferences. It's just that it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Couple questions that I had for you. Number one, I know that you have an incredible educational background. Like you're a doctorate, you are a trained archaeologist, which is crazy.
I'm pretty sure that if you wanted to bury a body, I could do it in such a way that when CSI shows up, they'll be like, was it buried 6 months ago or 20 years ago?
Considering you have this incredible educational background and everything, how the hell did you end up in multifamily? I don't think I've ever, maybe I have asked you that question, but what did you do to get here?
Well, I mean, what talking about that totally makes sense. Of course, I have a PhD in anthropology and I'm now like a multifamily tech person.
What's your origin story?
Origin story I was doing archaeology in the United States for development projects. So if you're seeking federal funding or state funding, if you're doing HUD and you're developing a property, you have to do an archaeological survey. The smaller version of that is if you're building a cell tower or put antennas on a building, you also have to do an archaeological/historic preservation study because you're seeking an FCC license. So in 2008, I got a job with a company that did due diligence for both real estate transactions and telecom transactions. And they hired me as their senior archaeologist. I was their only archaeologist. And then they gave me access to all of the back end. And after about a couple of months, I went to them and I said, you guys wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Here, can I fix it for you? And so I stayed there 5 years doing due diligence for telecom. I moved over to site acquisition for telecom. So that's really more the real estate side than even the due diligence because I was finding and acquiring sites. Site acquisition and telecom is a blood sport, right? If you are not throwing elbows constantly, you are not going to win.
Wow.
So it
was super, super competitive. Do you think it's still as competitive now as it was then?
Well, I think probably more so because the carriers got to the point where they didn't want to pay for things to do the site acquisition. So
Right.
they kept taking line items away from the site acquisition companies. They thought due diligence was just something that had to be gotten through. And I think Verizon laid off 15,000 people last year. So I think, if anything, it's gotten more competitive,
Yeah.
especially because you're now, instead of doing one big tower, you're doing tiny light pole installations because it's 5G. So I went into site acquisition, which I really liked, and I'd been doing that for about a year and a half for a nationwide company. And then a friend of mine from telecom called me and he said, "I want you to come work for me."
Mm.
And I said, "That's okay." I don't
You're
want to
like,
go
I'm
back to due
good.
diligence. And he's like, "We just got bought by CBRE yesterday." And I'm like, "Where do I sign?" And
That's
so
where, okay.
I started working for CBRE. I'd been there about a month. They had a guy come in and explain to us how CBRE works. At the end of the day, he's like, "Okay, we bought this company for X, Y, and Z, but what else can you do?" And me
Yeah.
being me, I'm like, um, he's in my hand, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "You have management of how many thousands of properties, and you're not doing in building telecom? You're not doing DAS? Like,
Yeah.
why?" And so I built that program for them. I think this is not tooting my own horn. It was just too soon. We're still coming off of it a little bit 10
Yeah.
years later.
Yeah.
But there was this point in time when the carriers were paying for these in-building cellular systems because
Yeah.
cellular doesn't penetrate buildings well.
Right.
And then they stopped.
I think this is a good point to make when we're talking about infrastructure, having that backbone of a property with network. So many properties think that you can just set up a bunch of hubs or systems throughout a community and it's just going to put everything online and everything's going to work. That's not necessarily true, because if you walk around to any property that probably has an in-unit hub, most likely they're in like the utility closet. They're not the prettiest thing in the world, but at least they're not, these scary archaic things from like the 80s or whatever. But the problem with that is that, that's the best place where all the hookups are for a direct line with the cable, right? But then the problem is, how many phone calls have you taken from a closet and had good service? Right? Like that's the main thing. And it doesn't work.
You are
Like so there are so many other solutions out there that do work with that, but it's not a perfect solution.
And I've got two things to say to that. One is, and I was trying to at OpTech 2 years ago, I did a workshop, and my major point was we have got to stop talking about Wi-Fi and start talking about digital infrastructure, right? Like
Yes.
this is not just Wi-Fi. This is digital infrastructure. You need the connectivity. You do need the base layer. And I've spent over 10 years saying this, like beating my head against this wall. But yeah, but what do we know?
That's the thing too, because the technology just keeps growing and changing. And if you don't have a strong infrastructure, that backbone to set you up, you will not be ready for the next step. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's something, especially when...
Yeah.
Right. When asset managers are looking at a portfolio, or a capital management group is looking at a portfolio and they're thinking about, okay, how much more can we squeeze out of this? What's the bare minimum we can put? Now, okay, not everybody is like that, but really just thinking about the numbers, they're not looking at the absolute value of the property sometimes when it comes to that infrastructure and the importance of, okay, maybe this year we make sure that all the properties are trenched, and if they're all like garden style, and we make sure that we have some sort of network in place, whatever it's going to be, so that at least we're set up now so that we can then start integrating new products as they come online, as they make more sense for this property. Because nobody's going to bulldoze these properties right now. Some of them are getting completely whacked down, but the majority of them are going to be hanging out for a while.
I love talking to you, Ashley. And the thing is, like, the technology is changing, right? And it's like you're talking about garden style. Anybody wants to talk managed Wi-Fi and garden style, I got ideas for you. There's a company who I would love to name drop right now, and I just can't remember their name, where you don't have to trench the fiber between buildings. They actually run it on the pavement in
What?
Yes, a few times last year, because I was just like, oh my goodness. You're talking about how asset managers don't think about this stuff when they're thinking about the overall value of the buildings. When I was at CBRE, I actually sat in valuation and advisory. So I talked to a lot of appraisers, like tried to get my hands around that process, which is all cash flows in commercial
Yeah.
real estate, right? I have been trying for the longest time, and I have had multiple conversations about this in the past month, even around why do you never look at the technology in the building? To me, if you're purchasing $20 million building or $100 million building, and you're going to have to put $1 to $2 million worth of connectivity infrastructure into it to make it so you can actually lease it, that should be in your underwriting. That should be in
Absolutely.
your bid, right? It hasn't happened yet. Years ago at CBRE, we actually put a diligence package. If you want to know what your cell connectivity in the building, we'll tell you. We'll come walk it with, a
Yeah.
PCTEL or whatever. It's not our problem. It's the carrier's problem. I'm like, no. That's
It's
not
everyone's
that's not
problem.
the well, they don't have the money. It's not where their revenue comes from. You've got 250,000 square feet in Nashville, right? And so it's got low E glass, which blocks radiation,
Right.
including cell signal, and it's concrete and whatever. Since 2015, everybody in telecom, everybody in tech, in real estate has been saying, well, it's all an education process. Okay, real estate now needs to get educated. Like
Yeah.
the time has come, folks. I have watched on from the real estate side. I wouldn't even want to try and guess how many pitches from tech companies and
Yeah.
telecom companies who are just missing the mark. The thing is, how much longer are we going to say this is not something you can wait on before it really becomes something you can't wait on?
Absolutely. And it just becomes a bigger nightmare.
So
I completely agree with you. I love that you've had that experience. Did you go from CBRE directly to Greystar, or was there something in between?
an acquaintance of mine introduced me to a company that they did real estate due diligence and they wanted a telecom due diligence division.
Yeah.
Great company, small, family owned, really like them. I didn't have particularly high hopes because of how that due diligence process worked within telecom, which I knew well. But I did spend about a year there, and anybody ever needs real estate due diligence, they're my favorite.
You've got so much
That's it.
experience with that. That's badass. And also with your understanding ins and outs of government protocol.
It's frustrating because, like, there are a bunch of regulations which they update fairly regularly, which you have to keep up with, right?
Mhm.
But there are quite a few cases where you kind of have to adhere to these regulations, which in theory makes sense, but in practice for a particular site don't.
Mhm.
And there's no way around that. I mean, there is
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of work to get around it. It was really interesting when I started in due diligence and I reframed the way they did business. This was like high time for telecom, and I would sit at my desk and watch projects come into our tracking system all day long. It was just dozens a day. And you're
Wow.
like, okay, I'm going to do this, and here's how we're going to do this one. And then when I moved into SiteAC, company I was working for was new, and they had talked AT&T into giving them a whole bunch of sites for site
Wow.
acquisition.
Oh, that's
And I got
fantastic.
moved. Oh, it was amazing. But I mean, I knew nothing about SiteAC. I started in Richmond and I met a guy who I will give a shout out to, Brendan Bellotti. You have to meet him.
Hey, what's up,
He
Brendan
is
Bellotti?
Brendan Bellotti. He taught me SiteAC
Mm.
quickly. And then they moved me to upstate New York, where there were a lot of promises that had been made. And it was like, they called me at like 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. And on Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., I'm on with the team going, okay, here's how we're going to actually make this happen.
Wow. Getting thrown in the deep end, like that's incredible. Their only option is to swim, right? Because otherwise you just sink. So just getting in there and
Yeah,
doing it,
you
and you
don't have a
learn
choice.
so
You don't
much.
have a choice.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
I mean, because AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, a lot of great people work at those companies, but they don't care about your excuses. They're
Yeah.
numbers driven. They need the sites. That's how they make money. The engineers run the show, and you have to understand the process and you have to know how to drive it, and you gotta not take things personally. If
Yeah.
you do, you're dead in the water.
Well, how would you
I
say,
mean,
especially with like large enterprise accounts like that with AT&T, how did you find your motivation? How did you dig into that grit that you needed to sail through
you
it,
don't have a
right?
choice.
Well, I feel like some people just wimp out. How did you dig in and do it? What do you think your past really helped you, like, okay, this is what, here we go. What are we doing? You know?
Well, first of all, and this goes back to grad school, I had a graduate advisor who I didn't always agree with, who's turning 90 this year. Shout out to
Yeah.
Rita Wright. Very strong woman in a male dominated field. She just like didn't take no for an answer, just was tough as nails. And I watched that, and there were things going on that were not cool. And I watched how Rita operated. Right? So then I got into due diligence. Everything's on 2 to 3 week term. You do not have a choice. And then I got into SITAC and I'm like, well, this is kind of even better because I, on some level, have control of the process from end
Nice.
to end. That thing is permitted, leased, everything. From the beginning, I found it exhilarating. When I was doing SITAC, it was like my sixth boss in 6 months. SITAC's
Oh,
very
I've seen that.
telecom is cyclical, right? Because
Yeah.
like the carrier release a bunch, like we need the antennas here, and you get through that. And so we were in a lull, and he called me, and he's like, still friends with the guy,
Good.
but he's like, Cris, I need to find something for you to do because if you get bored, you're going to get into trouble. And he was not wrong. But like, you know what, Ash? Like I was thinking about this. It's like I keep engaging in things work wise that are projects. It's not how it's advertised in the job ad or what it seems like in the beginning, but in the end, it's a project and they need
Yeah.
somebody to come in who's focused and determined and, I mean, quite frankly, visionary to make something happen. Is that avocado behind you?
Yes, that is my lucky avocado. My son found it
Okay.
at a squishy marshmallow, whatever store. But yeah, that's an avocado because I love avocados. I know I've got a lot of random shit. Okay. So CBRE,
Yeah.
additional site work.
And then I went to Graystar, which I was just telling somebody earlier. I'm like, nobody gets a job off of LinkedIn, but I actually got the job with Graystar off of LinkedIn.
And you were with Graystar for a bit. You were kind of part of
I
that
wasn't
group.
there that long, about 2 years.
A lot of things happened in that time with technology. Specifically, that was a very like sweet spot.
Yeah.
And for also how Graystar, I feel like this is my perspective, how they now operate with resident services and engagement and software versus the physical and the telecom, the networking part, which you were more of a part of with the physical access and
Well,
security
and
and
they did,
networking.
yeah. And a guy that used to work for me, he came in through an acquisition and he interviewed with a bunch of people at Graystar and decided to work for me. So sucker. But he's handled that network infrastructure piece still.
Yeah,
And from what I'm hearing, like he's expanding more into the IoT, smart home, access control kind of space.
very cool.
I appreciate what Graystar was trying to accomplish when they hired me, but it's a big company and I had worked
Yeah,
for CBRE.
which is
Five
huge.
times bigger. The thing about you don't realize about big companies is all the interlocking initiative protocols and whatever until you're in the door. And then you start to feel your way around and you're like, oh, okay, so resource, I have to go here and I'm up
Yeah.
against this. And they had this large overriding strategic move they were doing around brand. It was just one of those things where, again, I think it was too soon. I
Yeah.
think it was too soon. I think everybody had seen the success, including Graystar, that Smart Rent was having. And they were like, okay, this is the next big thing. And it just didn't turn out that way.
I think tech platforms like SmartRent or Stratus, which was also an early investment from Graystar as well. They were on the board of Stratus when they first started in Philly before they were acquired by RealPage. I think a lot of these platforms that kind of started out that were trying to become this all-in-one were very early, but they were the ones that trailblazed what the expectation should be. And no tech is perfect. And I think what you and I have talked about a lot is that each property is its own delicate little flower and it's all unique and none of them are going to be the same. And it's not just with like the setup of them, but also the expectation. And that's why it always comes back for me is understanding the journey in multiple ways on a property. And that's the physical access journey of the minute someone steps foot on the property and how you control their experience throughout, no matter who they are, a resident, a guest, a vendor, a delivery person, a management person. You need to know how each of those people are being controlled throughout the community, right? Big brother. And then you've got the software piece as well, whether they are all integrated together into that one pane of glass, which I know you're not a huge fan of, or if it's a bunch of separate systems that somehow do still coordinate and work with each other to flow and give a good experience and blah, blah, blah.
That's, as you know, what I've been really focused on the past couple of years in my current position is this: how do we serve those bespoke conditions, right? When they may have a door king or butterfly already, and how do you come in and not do a rip and replace, or do a rip and replace but do it intelligently, so that this year they want access controls. It's about being strategic and not tactical. I wrote an article last year about why real estate hates buying tech, and it's like they've been burned so many times. And Smart Rent, bless them, if I were in charge of Smart Rent, I would have done the same thing, right? I've got this investment, I've got a captive audience, I'm going to go build, right? The problem is it's not a one size fits all solution. I'm not saying anything bad about Smart Rent. I think it's fantastic, but it's not one size fits all. And well, their reliance on cellular troubles me.
Back to the having a phone call in the closet. That specifically is, I know that they did a great job on getting on top of all those properties in Texas after that massive freeze that they had where everything kind of shut down, and they were really business-wise smart with getting on a lot of properties. They fully implemented their full package with the leak sensors, the smart door locks. What else do? They do a hub, a sensor, access, a door, which was great. But the thing that I'm not a huge fan of is that the minute a new resident moves in, when you download the app, it says, do you want to put this on your personal Wi-Fi? Which is great for when the resident's there. Yes, instead of the hub. There's multiple problems with that. Number one, you lose any data the minute it's on that personal Wi-Fi. Any data that you want to be collecting about that unit specifically that you're allowed to with privacy settings, you lose. So that benefit of having full property like data, you lose when you do that. Number two, what happens when that person moves out? It does not automatically go back on the system. You're going to have your property team go and reconnect it. And it's like, I'm sorry, are they Geek Squad? No, they are not Geek Squad. Some teams are going to be on top of it and know how to handle this kind of stuff because they understand how important getting these tech pieces are for like a turn. Most likely they're not. And so you're, again, stuck with a system that has human error.
Most likely they haven't been there for 6 months, right? Because you're turning 40 to 50% of your property staff every year.
Absolutely.
And I had a friend move into a place a year and a half or so ago in Charlotte, and it had Smart Rent, and he just refused to connect it and was like, I'm not using it. And I'm like, well, it's really cool if you do.
It is cool. Okay, for the resident, it's such a great move on Smart Rent to be able to offer that to the resident because it does create better connectivity when they have it on their personal localized network, right? It's going to be stronger. But if you're working off a cellular hub, it's not going to be that strong. And it's usually stuck like in a closet or under the sink or somewhere
in the cabinet over the microwave. So I had been with Graystar like a nanosecond, and everybody's like, you have to talk to Smart Rent. Again, not talking trash about Smart Rent. I had spent years doing this. The idea that you're sticking, and they've changed now. They've got the whole thermostat. I can't remember what the name of it is, but they're all being swapped out for something that's on the wall. But like at the time, I was like, so where are you putting this hub? And they're like, oh, behind the equipment panel in the walk-in closet or in the cabinet over the microwave. I mean, all of my internal alarm bells were going off. I'm like,
but here's the thing. I think we need to explain that piece to whoever's watching us. Like, oh, it's just two chicks who are like nerding out and like, oh my God, no, it's so bad. The reason why it's bad is because you don't know what's behind that wall. Think about it. Like some properties are so old that it's plaster, it's concrete. Not everything is like stick build. Is wooden construction. Like you've got a lot of metal.
Like I was talking about earlier, there's this thing called lowy glass, and there are probably new names for it now. It's not letting the solar radiation, so the sun, get through your windows, so that in the middle of summer you're not getting that radiant heat from all of your windows. But cell signal is also radiation.
That's a very good point to make.
It's a much better user experience as long as the infrastructure is there.
I love how people are applying the use of AI. I consult and advise for different, startups and SaaS companies in the multifamily space for property technology.
And she's awesome. Hire her.
I'm awesome.
100%
Hire
hire
me.
her.
I'm offering
Yes.
short-term engagements right now. You're awesome. Chris is awesome too. But there's a lot of companies that are built around AI. Now, I've seen they even have their whole marketing plan and website built with these different bots. And sometimes it's a little obvious. You need a little bit more refining to make it just right. But to just get started with an idea, I think is fantastic. You have something that really can help you build weeks worth of time within moments, which is fantastic. It's not perfect where it's going to take you all the way. It probably will one day. A big positive in like your resume is noting that you use AI for productivity. Companies want to see that, which I thought was really cool.
Thank you. I'm writing that down. So.
AI for
No,
productivity. Add that to like your like skill set, right?
just remember last year I was at Fire Summit, right, with Matt Knight.
Matt Knight.
Shout out. That's a
Hi,
serious
Matt
shout
Knight.
out. If you are lucky enough to get invited, go. Matt is just a man among men. One of the sessions was on AI. So in the AI world, where were we a year ago? Someplace completely different,
It's
right?
crazy.
But the point that the two speakers were making, I thought was really interesting and that I've kind of like kept with me and I always think about is that most data has already been, we'll say, corrupted by AI. Like most data has already been through an AI engine or something at least once. So when you apply AI to it, you're extrapolating from something that AI has already manipulated.
Something that's already been filtered. So it's double
Yeah,
filtered,
or processed or whatever.
double processed.
And then they gave an example. They're like, if you're trying to figure out X, you don't need AI. That's a Excel formula. That's like there's a simpler solution to that. You're wasting your time using AI because you're probably looking at data that's already polluted. And why do that? And then there are good reasons for AI. And I always try to keep that with my best friend Claude. I have a PhD. I'm big on citations. And so I'll go check the Claude citations and I'm like, is this a legitimate source? But you just have to be careful with it. You have to be like intentional about how you use it.
Let's dish on being a woman in real estate.
This is an interesting topic for me. So I came from archaeology, which is very male dominated, right? Like then I could tell you about telecom where like there's this group called WWLF, Women's Wireless Leadership Foundation or something along those lines.
Yeah.
It's the big telecom shows. They have a party the first night, the WWLF.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was started by a man, and it's called WWLF, which I always thought sounded like
Like
professional
WWE.
wrestling, and it's because he likes professional wrestling.
Interesting.
So I would always go to because it was like, everybody would get in, big WWLF thing, and it would be 90% men.
Okay. That doesn't sound like an ally event.
I Now, when I was in site acquisition, I would go meet with guys who were in charge of regions for carriers. And actually, you know me, I've got a mouth like a sailor, like a drunk
the
sailor.
best.
And yet, like, they would say things to me, and I'd be like, this is not productive.
Top 2 stupid shit things a dude has said to you in whether it's like on a call, conference, or drunk or not. What is something so stupid?
Totally sober. I had a high level executive who I was talking to once. I don't remember the exact context. And I said, I'm going to need that in writing, as any sane person would do. And he actually leaned over, patted me on the knee, and said, oh, I know, honey. I know you like things in writing. Senior executive.
How did you respond to that?
I mean, I was speechless. I'm like, I had a boss call me on more than one occasion tell me that I lack executive presence. I was like, I'm me, so I'm like,
no, but it
okay,
had to do
let's
it
dig into
had
that.
more to do with you wearing heels, right? Like about
That's what it came down to was he didn't like the way I dressed. And as a woman in tech, I mean, come on, flak jacket. Like there's a certain way you dress.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I'm not going to go to like a serious meeting in leggings, you know? It's like this is
Exactly. It's like
they're in golf clothes
No,
half the
because the
time.
next Well, no, that's what happened was early the next morning, I had a conference call with that person, somebody senior to him, and I was like, "Fine, I'm gonna put on a blouse, I'm gonna put on a blazer, I will show up dressed like blah, blah, blah," and I showed up and they were all in golf shirts.
Such a double standard.
And I was just, "Seriously,
Yeah.
folks?"
I think one of the worst things that was ever said to me was at one of the happy hours for NMHC annual in Vegas. It was a few years ago. I had just gotten a drink. I was wearing like not yoga pants. I was in like business dress, you know, like to the knee. I think it had a cap sleeve. I like a crew neck on like everything. So it was up here, fitted, but it wasn't skin tight. It was professional. And so I'm sitting at the bar having a gin and tonic, and this young man with two of his buddies stood right next to me at the bar. And he goes, "So are you working or are you working?" Yeah.
Okay, that's where I would have
Oh,
been in a
dude,
place he didn't want to touch.
it was everything not to like, basically was asking me if I was a hooker. Right? And I looked at him and
Oh, no, I get
looked at him and I looked down and I was like, I still have the lanyard on for NMHC with my name badge and everything. And I just looked at him and I looked at this and I was like, beyond. And he just kind of smiled and I kind of laughed it off and he went off with his buddies, but I gave him like a death stare. And then finally my supervisor showed up and I told him what happened and he was like ready to, he's like, friend of mine, Rich, like Notre Dame wanted to take this guy out. It was great. But I was just like, but that's the thing.
no,
It's
but, like,
not that we aren't used to this kind of behavior, whether it's sexist like that in just a horrible remark or bad behavior in the workplace, like in a meeting, potential client who doesn't know you automatically assuming that you're the assistant, that you're not leading the call.
actually, I think the thing is too, I think inability or reticence or whatever about saying like outright, "You can't say that
No,
to me." Like,
ever.
that is inappropriate.
Yeah.
No, I had a situation like this a few months
Mm,
ago, right? But where I was just like, it took like I had to like gather my energy and get the talking points, but where I had to call someone and say, "I'm really sorry, and I like you. I think you're great, but if you ever say that to me
yeah.
again, I'm sorry, we can no longer
Yeah.
talk."
Glad that like older now and we're in a place where we know better. We keep our receipts, you know. We
Mhm.
have a lawyer when we need one. Like this is not new to us, unfortunately. We have been galvanized in this. I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, my eyes look different. What's different? I've seen shit.
I was telling you about Rita, my grad school advisor, and how we had differences of opinion. And one of them was that I showed up at grad school, little child, right? And Rita was she was doing gender studies and
Interesting.
archaeology. She was very feminist in that, I wouldn't say like Gloria Steinem way, but
Right.
close, right? Like very conscious of this stuff. And she was always preaching, okay, women are getting, crapped on and blah. And I just, because of my dad, I hadn't grown up feeling that way,
Mm,
right? She was very much like, women have been oppressed forever. And I'm like, I don't want to hear it. That's not true, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, fast forward a year later, but it became clear that I was wrong.
yeah.
And then, and now I'm watching my 22-year-old go through this, and I'm like, you have got to
Like,
be
why are we still
joking,
dealing with
right?
this shit? I think the thing that kind of goes hand in hand with it being such a male dominated with real estate technology, there are so many women that are also in leadership roles, women who have worked their way up, that have dealt with all of the shit and they have risen to the top as high as they possibly can. And they're holding on for dear life to make sure that what they had to scrape with and
Yeah,
whatever to
but
get
that's
there. But here's the thing, I just want to make this point. This is my crab analogy.
mhm.
If you have a bunch of crabs in a pot, they're alive and they're slowly starting to boil to death, right? They'll all be trying to get out of the pot. But, the minute one gets so close, the other ones will grab them and pull them down. And then the process will start over and over and over again. And I'm just like, women we're not trying to deny the fact that they work so hard to get there and really pave a way for us to be where we are now. Like, I have my own company. Like, you do consulting, you're revered in the industry because of you being a badass and like saying it like it is, because you do. I have seen it firsthand friend where you're doing like a networking thing and there's an opportunity to connect with each other and help bring each other up, but they're just being fucking crabs pulling you back down. And
Well,
like, don't
first
be
of
a
all,
crab. Don't be a crab.
okay, but first of all, I'm sitting on the eastern shore of Maryland, fully intending
You
to
better
have
eat all
crabs
those
in the
freaking
next couple of
crabs.
days. Like, now that you've just described that, it's kind of ruining it for me.
But
The
you know what I
crabs.
mean?
I
Like
mean,
I
they're so
feel like that's what's
no, it
happening.
is. No, and what's sad is now that I'm thinking about it, the most progress I've made in my career has, like, over and over again, has not been because of a woman.
Yeah, no, I agree, unfortunately. Although
It's because I'm one of the guys and I'm a straight shooter and, blah, blah, blah,
I
blah,
will say
blah. And at
though
first,
that
like a
you are one of
sales.
the most supportive women I have ever connected with in this industry, and I'm so thankful. And I
Seriously?
yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's like the best thing anybody's ever
But
said to
oh God,
me.
but
No,
seriously, you are so
all bumps
kind.
rise,
I mean,
Ashley.
you no, but honestly, you are intimidating. You are really smart. You don't bullshit anybody. I mean, see when you're just being when you do that and you got the sparkle in your eye and you're like, shut the fuck up. I love that
Smiling
about you.
eyes.
And it resonates with so many people in the industry. It works. You are so knowledgeable about so many things. Just like when we were first talking about telecom, I just absolutely loved it. And because you're still teaching me things, which is great, but also like you're an incredible person. And
You teach me things, and this is why, like, we're
I see
friends,
we need
right?
friendship bracelets because we actually love each other. Actually, you did. Okay. I have to tell
Oh,
people
well,
I was just coming off of a contract working with a company. It didn't work out very well, but I could tell she was trying to tell me something without telling me something. I am a really nice person. She sent me this necklace and it's like a little like pendant and it says be kind, which I was like, "Oh, I love that." But then you open it, it says of a bitch. And I was like, yes. And it just like, it's like my spirit
my
animal necklace.
Ashley, I saw that. It was like one of those, like,
Yes.
viral everywhere on Instagram or whatever kind of things. And the first time I saw it, I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm
That was
buying
so
that
great.
and I know who I'm
I
sending
know
it
she sent me
to.
Hot Wheels for my
But,
kid.
like,
Like she's great.
I mean, but the thing is, it's like, it's so hard, I think, to be kind and also be a bitch.
It is.
When it's taken as a weakness if you're nice to someone.
Yep. Don't mistake my
Yeah,
kindness for
no.
weak.
I
Oh,
mean,
and
because, like,
furthermore,
oh, I've
don't
got
don't mistake my kindness for that I want to sleep with you, that I'm available. It's literally my job to be nice to you. Like literally, just because someone is nice to you, whether you are a man or a woman, does not mean that they're available for you to go to bed with.
it's not
Like it's
flirting.
not. I
It's
mean,
not
yeah, sometimes there's
flirting,
a little bit of, but
dumbasses.
that's just like you're human. But no, stop thinking that if a woman smiles, if a man smiles, if you have a charming, a kind conversation that has anything to do with a personal thing other than I am trying to bond with you, to connect with you so that we can trust each other and do business or refer business to each other because people just want to work with people they like. But that doesn't mean you need to sleep with
Yeah,
them. Like,
and you have to build that trust. You have to build trust, and maybe that's the old school thing. So, how many kids do you have, or whatever? Or maybe that's bonding over, or are you watching March
yeah.
Madness?
Like, where are you
Yeah,
from?
I
How
mean,
tall are you? How much do you make? Like,
yeah,
it's
no, but
not like
sometimes
that.
it's just like get made fun of for this, and I'm sure you do too, but I'm a schmoozer.
Oh,
Like, and it's
yes.
not like, but
Yes.
schmoozing makes it seem like it is kind of like it's kind of a derogatory term. A reason
Professional
I'm
word
like,
for it is
I'm just like,
networking. You're networking.
yeah,
We're good at
I'm
it. Do we have answers for how to make this better? I think we need to be supportive of each other. I think that dudes need to stop being idiots. I will say though, like you had just mentioned a moment ago, the biggest like jumps you've made in your career have been under men. Working with men, sorry, let's not say that. When I, right, I will say that there have been three men in my career that have made huge impacts, me personally, just in how I think they've taught me things, but also have fought for me. Like, really fought for me. And I'm so thankful to them for proving me wrong, proving, I think, a lot of the gender norm wrong of what men treat women in the workplace, how a lot of our experience has been, specifically in our industry, that have literally gone to bat and almost jeopardized their own positions, being like, why the fuck haven't you hired Ashley? So thankful. Like
well,
Robert Brown, love you so much. You're Ride or die
Hi,
for life.
Robert.
Robert, yeah, Chris loves you too. Rich Albright, he's my Notre Dame, ride or die. Tony Coyne, you are a great guy. I love you,
Oh,
Tony.
awesome.
Right? He called me third day after I had joined Latch and just basically gave me the lowdown on everything. Told me everything about how everything operates. Immediately, he hadn't even met me yet, but he had heard that I had a multifamily background, that I had just come from Stratus, which that was a whole thing. And it was like, I'm going to tell her everything. I'm going to make sure she is prepped and we're going to kick ass. And we did. We kicked so much ass together.
Okay, so you're shouting out, guys. So I've already shouted out Brendan
Yes.
Bellotti, who's amazing. Eric
Eric
Pagoda,
Pagoda.
who rescued me from a life of obscurity and site acquisition. We hit it off the day I met him. He was, like I said, he was my sixth boss in six
God,
months.
that's right.
And within, I think, a month, he's like, as of Monday, your title is this, and here's what we're going to pay you.
Wow.
And it was like not insubstantial. And then it'd say, Jeremy Beck took me under his wing. I had been at CBRE maybe 2 months, and I was introduced to him. And CBRE being 100 and some thousand employees,
Yeah.
100 and some countries is like incomprehensible
Yeah.
if you haven't
Massive,
lived it.
massive
And
company.
I think about Josh Reynolds, who an old friend of mine used to be with T-Mobile, and he's always supported me.
They're the ones who understand, not necessarily that they're woke, but that they just understand if you work with the right people and you support the right people, you are going to be successful.
These are guys that I can, like, if they say something that is borderline misogynistic or sexist or whatever, I can just be like, can you just listen to what you
Like,
just
repeat
said?
that.
And they'll be like,
Do better.
okay. Yeah, you might want to try that when I get it. But they'll do it. There is this, as women, we want to connect with other women. And it's not that I don't like men, because I do. I think they're
Men
great.
are all
But Karen, who puts on Wham, is a magic human being.
never been to Wham.
I got to go with Graystar, and I helped them like find some sponsors and stuff like that. And then you go, and it's like men literally are not allowed. You're on a panel and you're male, you're allowed to come in and do your panel, and then you got to go.
Interesting.
And they're allowed, they do like a 1 or 2 hour kind of small trade show kind of thing. And men are allowed at that. But all of the tables, all of the swag, it's the best swag you've ever gotten in your
Okay,
entire life.
please, I
It's
want to go
like,
to
there was
Wham.
one,
Please.
it was amazing. It was, we're not screwing around here. Like, you've got to have a uterus to hang out
That's
with us.
amazing. Do you
And
feel
it
that
was,
the content and the connections at that was really supportive and exciting?
well, I think it was more like, it was more my kind of do,
Mhm.
where it was just like the fact that we were women was kind of ancillary,
I love
right?
that.
It was that we were good at our
Yeah.
jobs, and we were in real estate,
Mhm.
and we were in technology, and we were in this. It was asset
Mhm.
managers. And so it's not like it wasn't a he woman man haters
Yeah.
club. And it was just like, you know what? I felt the same way about CBRE has an affinity group that's women, and they do a really good
That's
job.
awesome. Thank you so much for joining. I'm glad you were able to nerd out with me a bit, and then we got to like get on boxes for a bit. Fun.
For those of you who don't know Ashley, she's not only,
Stop it.
you can look at her, but she is super smart and just one of the nicest people you ever meet. And like, you want to do business with her because she's good at it.
Thank
So
you. Thank
leave
you
that
so
in,
much.
Ashley.
I will. Fine, I will. I'm bad. No, same with you. Same with you. Cris Kimbrough is a badass. I think everybody knows that, but if you haven't worked with her yet, you need to. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. And this was actually really
Thank
fun.
you. It was awesome.